Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast, brought to you by Modern Well, a beautiful woman-centered collaborative workspace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm your host, April Seifert, psychologist, entrepreneur, and self-proclaimed life experience junkie. Each week, I will introduce you to a different woman who is succeeding and inspiring others in one way or another. We'll dive into her story, her successes, failures, and the lessons she has learned along the way, all with the goal of inspiring you to listen to that inner voice who keeps reminding you that there is something you want to take action on. You are so much more capable and powerful than you give yourself credit for. Inside of you is a woman on fire. Let's let her out and see what happens. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Women Inspired Podcast. My name is April Seifert and I am your friend and your host on this amazing journey through incredible interviews with inspiring women. This week is huge. This week, you're going to hear from a woman named Deb Mallin. Now, I heard about Deb because her director of marketing reached out to me to recommend her for the podcast. She talked about how incredibly passionate Deb was for the type of work that she's doing. And the second I got on the phone with Deb to get to know her a little bit, I saw exactly why she would be perfect for this episode. Deb is the founder of an organization called Literacy Matters, and their aim is to help kids proficiently learn how to read. They're founded in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area where I live, as does Deb, and it was incredible to talk to Deb about the scope and size of this problem. I couldn't believe it. So just here in the Minneapolis and St. Paul public schools, less than 60% of students can read at grade level by third grade. That's insane because, and Deb made this crazy point to me on her pre-interview, by the fourth grade, kids transition from learning how to read to reading in order to learn. So if they're not proficient, if they don't have basic reading skills at that point, when they transition to fourth grade, they immediately fall behind and they're at a massive disadvantage, literally for the rest of their lives. Conducting this interview with Deb touched me in a way that it just hit me right in the heart. Deb has an incredible way, and you'll hear it in her interview, an incredible way of just letting the passion that she has for this cause come to the surface, and it just draws you in. You just can't help but listen to her and take this huge problem seriously. And something happened during this episode that has never happened before. I have never had a guest get a bit emotional when they've talked about something that they are so passionate about. You can just hear it in her voice. So I really am excited for all of you to meet Deb. One of the other reasons why I'm thrilled to be hosting this episode now is that today, the day that this episode drops, an amazing opportunity is coming across the desk of Deb and Literacy Matters. Deb is actually working on an app that helps kids learn to read. It's called Mighty Doodle. And in order to put this app out there, she needs to raise quite a bit of money to make this thing happen and get it in the hands of the kids who need it. Now, what's incredible is Deb and Literacy Matters have been chosen by the Bazinet Charitable Foundation in Minneapolis as a recipient for a match for donations. So between today and October 31st, if you donate at www.literacymatters.org, the Bazinet Charitable Foundation will match at 2-to-1 up to $150,000. That is huge. That's massive. If you have kids and you have a heart for helping kids succeed, this is the organization to give to. And it's such an incredible time to do it because every single one of your dollars is going to go so much further. Now, even beyond the cause of this organization and Deb's passion for helping kids learn to read, there is so much in this interview for every single one of you, just in terms of recognizing when there's a problem and going after a solution and putting it out there and persisting even when things get really, really hard. I absolutely cannot wait for you to meet Deb Mallin. Deb, I am so thrilled to have you here to chat today about the awesome work that you've been doing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So I want to give everybody, before we dive into this amazing work that you are doing, I want to give everybody a chance to get to know you as a person. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was a teacher beginning in third grade and have always loved working with children. When I'm not dedicating my hours to other people's children, I spend time with my family, lots of time in the garden, love to play in the kitchen, and dare I say, I love to dance hip hop in my office.
I love that. And for people who are listening to this, she did confess that there was a little bit of dancing right before this interview. So that is awesome. And I love that we're starting off on that note. That's so cool. So I'm really excited to talk to you because of some of the work that you are doing. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing with Literacy Matters and how all of that got started.
It actually, as I said, got started when I was a third grader. I vividly recall looking around my classroom and noticing what I later learned in college was nonverbal behavior. Kids sort of slumped down in their chairs. And I quickly realized there were children who could not intuitively learn. And back in the 70s, they didn't really diagnose things like ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, nonverbal learning disabilities, and all the things we're well aware of now that we have more information on the brain and learning. So that seed was planted. I continued on through school as we do, sometimes bored, sometimes not, watching other students struggle. I went to high school, went on to college. In college, I studied communications and always really wanted to be a teacher, but for just a number of reasons, took a different a trail. I met my husband when I was in college, and on our first date, he said, "What do you want to be? What do you really want to do?" And I said, "What I really want to do is be a teacher more than anything." And he said, "You should be a teacher." So flash forward about 3 years, he proposes. Of course, I say yes to the AV guy from high school. And literally the next day on my way to work for Colgate-Palmolive, he motioned for me to lower the window, and he leaned in and he said, "Go quit your job. We're going to find a way for you to go to grad school."
Wow.
And I went back to the University of St. Thomas, earned my master's degree in curriculum and classroom management, and began teaching. Then we welcomed our first son into the world, and I became a serial volunteer at the side of a serial entrepreneur, trying to balance starting our own company together in our basement, as well as taking care of our son. Moved into motherhood of now 3 growing boys who I never wore anything but a flat ballet shoe to keep up with them. And I raised them. My son, 2 of my sons were a lot older. My youngest son was at home, also having been diagnosed with dyslexia. And I opened up a private practice where my eyes were opened beyond what they had been as a public school teacher and working in the private sector of schools as well. My private practice as a literacy specialist, my mornings were filled with paying clients, most of them attending independent schools or really good suburban schools. And my afternoons were my pro bono clients. And within about a year, my mornings were running into midday with students off-site, sometimes 5 days a week at their schools. And my evenings with pro bono students started running into about 8 p.m. So my days and nights were taken up with children in need. And it was impossible to meet all the needs of my growing private practice. That fateful night when one of my children said, "No more Costco chicken pot pie. This is crazy. You're never here." What? And then my other son chimed in and, "God, don't get any more rotisserie chicken from there either." And I got really upset. And I said, "You have had access to all of the advantages of good school based on your zip code. And there are not enough of me. So why don't you offer to empty the dishwasher? I don't remember what I said or whatever it was. Everybody, clear the table, please, help. And then I turned to my husband and I said, you know what? You'll have dinner when you can deliver me on a device. You used to work for Apple Computers and you are a serial entrepreneur. Help me, help children, help this family. Deliver me on a device. Help me start a company. And then he said, yes. He said, Deb, yes, I will help you, but you will run it. But the technology's not quite there yet. And we need POC. And in my head, all I could think was, I need to read business books. I need to understand what I'm doing. There's some sort of osmosis by being at his side as he grew businesses beyond the one we started. But I needed to get booking, right? And so then I realized that he said, first we need POC. So I turned really with all the dignity I could muster after crying at the dinner table. And I said, what's POC? Right? And he said, okay, that's proof of concept. And that's artificial intelligence. And that is what we started 3 years ago. And I will tell you, I am serving less dinners than ever, but my family's all on board. So that's the good news.
This is incredible. So number one, every once in a while I interview somebody where the word, like the same word, echoes in my head and it's gumption, 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 gumption. Like, that's so awesome. You turn to your kids and you're like, hey, you empty the dishwasher, and you over there with the technical skills, I need those. Like, what are you going to do to help? I love that. I also love that your husband, came up to you and said, we need to find a way for you to quit your job so you can go back and actually pursue your dreams. It's amazing how many people I connect with who, close people in their life. Sometimes it's not a spouse or a significant other. Sometimes it's friends or, family of origin or whatever it is. Some close person around them, instead of pumping them up and making them motivated, they instill some doubt in that person's mind. So I think it's so cool that you had people around you who kind of rallied to help you make this dream a reality. That's so neat.
I was pretty blessed by not just my husband's value of education, but his parents, who, when pregnant and starting a company and grad school and business school, all these things we were doing, offered to help and supported me. So I was blessed to join a family that really valued education.
Yeah. Yeah. I that so resonates with me as we're speaking, and maybe, who knows, by the time this airs, I might have delivered my baby. But at the stage that I'm at right now, I'm about as pregnant as you can get. And we're the same way. Our family's the same way. I call us Band-Aid rippers. I'm like, what else can we fit into this one time period? Let's do a lot of really big things at once. And so I can totally understand that.
See movies, get sleep. I will tell you something I have said in meetings when we meet with donors, because we're a nonprofit and we run because of the generation of people in the state of Minnesota and beyond. I say to them, when my boys were babies, they had rubber bath books, right? They were literally immersed, right, in the water, in books. And they had a great advantage, millions of words advantage, right? And so what happens to the children who don't have parents who speak English, who are multi-generational illiterate families doing the best that they can with what they have? And I think it's incumbent, and this is what I've hopefully instilled in my children, it's incumbent upon those who know better to do better. And we know that early literacy, right, beyond the bathtub, giving them the foundational skills to read and write, because that's just a code, right? There's a methodology. I reference the Orton-Gillingham method from the 1930s. This was a Dr. Orton and Miss Gillingham who created the methodology, which I studied and use in my curriculum, that's scientifically proven, that teaches us how to teach. There's an order, there's a repetitiveness, there's a methodology. And so my children had access to that beyond the bathtub. And my son, who struggled himself, had an OG tutor, which is basically what we're delivering to schools for the children most at risk, for that horrible statistic of 85% of children in the juvenile court system being illiterate. We can change that. We can affect the domino effect of the shame associated with illiteracy, right? We know that they have low self-esteem. We know that they self-medicate. We know they suffer from depression. We know that it's really hard to get a job when you can't read a job application or even the bus schedule to get you to fill out the application. And we know you can't even fill out a ballot to vote and represent yourself in our country in any way, hence the achievement gap. But, we have a huge problem in our country. I think we've all opened Pandora's box. We know it exists. Illiteracy is a disease, and we have the vaccination. We just need to get it into the hands of children so they can read and write, not based on zip code, but the fact that that's part of who America is.
I just got chills as you were saying that because I wrote down this notion of the zip code, like your kids having so much opportunity just by way of where they live. I would love for you to speak a little bit more about the size and scope of this problem, because I 100% know that I have no idea how big of a problem this is. It's the definition of privilege, right? I live in a place, and I was raised in a place where, we had challenges growing up, but every single person around me could read, and all of my friends could read, and it was just sort of a given, and it wasn't even something you think about. And that's not the case for everyone. And I would love for you to just kind of set the stage for us to understand what the scope of this problem looks like.
Great question. So education should not be a privilege, right? It's a right. And so when I say it's based on zip code, it's because I know that depending on the zip code is what sort of access you have to education. We also know that the only way to close the gap in Minnesota specifically, Minneapolis, testing in third grade again, less than 60% are at grade level at the end of third grade, which is a really critical time because you go from learning.
That is crazy.
You go from learning to read to reading to learn. So if you haven't learned to read in third grade, the statistics are against you. Really, you're left behind. If you don't know how to read by the age of 9, you'll struggle to read for the rest of your life. Right? So I have this image, sometimes I just comes in my head at night, and I imagine a kid, 9 years old, like blowing out his birthday candles, and his entire trajectory is set. And I think that could put your own face of your own kid on that child. And that is not what you'd be wishing when they blow out the candles, right? You wish for happiness, you wish for health, you wish for them to thrive. You don't wish for them to board a bus to a juvenile correction facility. So that was why Mighty Doodle was born. How do I reach all of these kids with this Orton-Gillingham method, which I so subscribe to and so love, and then take what I learned in my own office, make it relevant to these device-driven kids, right? We know they're on devices, and make it relevant and use all kinds of music and dancing and mobility while still honoring their method, right? We can't do it like we did it in the 1930s. Children are different. I just read an article about how grandparents are saying, what's wrong with my grandchildren? How are you raising these kids? And the truth is, it's different. It's so very different. And we don't have the same level of rigidity and obedience they had in the 1930s. And so Mighty Doodle, as did I, spends the first session really building a bridge with children. And there begins the process of engaging them. We build on success. We know success breeds success. At the end of the session, they had a great day. They want the devices back. We talk about efficacy with our devices. We're looking at data. We're looking at, all the details. I have all these super smart people around me creating charts and Excel spreadsheets. And I said, you're missing the most important demonstration of efficacy. We have children that are food insecure, right? Our population we're currently serving in North Minneapolis qualify for free and reduced breakfast and lunch. We worked with them an hour before they go to lunch. So these food insecure children who probably hadn't eaten since lunch at school the day before would say to a teacher, they would tug on her sleeve or tug on me and say, please let me finish. I'm almost through the games, right? They're learning.
Oh.
And I said, that's efficacy. Smiling children wanting to learn, that is the definition. The numbers are great and we need them. We saw great improvement in our students. They're learning to read, and we'll come back in the fall and make up for the summer slide because they don't have summer school. They don't have the great science camps that my children were very lucky that I found online because I could read about them, right? So yeah, that's how it happens.
Oh my gosh, I'm like way too pregnant to be doing this interview right now because I totally got the image that you're saying of this 9-year-old kid blowing out their candles and having so much of their future trajectory set. Like that just like shatters my heart in a million pieces because everybody, I mean, I've walked into my daughter's daycare classroom and there's all these little kids of a million different backgrounds, and something that we're really passionate about in our house is the notion of like, this is not a place where prejudice is okay. This is not a place where inequality is okay. It is not tolerated here. You know, you can go do that in your own house. You are not welcome here and messing up this environment that we've got going on right now. But I look at the kids in her class and I think, oh my gosh, like at what point was my daughter supposed to learn that her friend, who she holds hands with at recess and runs around and goes on the slide with, she's actually supposed to hate her because they look different, you know? And you think about like a little kid, at what point do you look at that little kid and say, you know what? It's okay that you don't have the same opportunities as somebody else. Like you can go ahead and have that bad trajectory. And then when you're an adult, we're going to blame you for it. And we're going to say that it was because of the choices that you made and because somehow it's a fault of your own. Like, oh, it just breaks my heart.
I agree. I'll tell you, it's taught at the dinner table, right? We address inequity at our dinner table early on. I don't think children see color in first grade, right? They see people. And they see their friends, and they don't understand what they don't know. They're taught not to care, right? The first virtue you teach your children is empathy. I was in third grade in the most segregated city, one of them, in Milwaukee, and I could feel something, but it wasn't in my heart, right? And so I had all kinds of friends, and that instilled a value in me early on. And the conversation that we had at our dinner table stayed the course of being a good person and empathy first and don't judge other people. And that's sort of how I live my life. And hopefully that's instilled in my children. Mighty Doodle, right? That avatar they create on our game, they pick their own color. Most often it's pink and blue. That's the color of their friend. I didn't want to shatter your heart. Actually, I feel bad. That's the last thing I want to do. I actually want to tell you there's so much hope. I'm so filled with hope every day. I think I've worked, countless hours for the last 3+ years. Sorry if my voice is tired, because I'm also the voice of the character, so it gets tired. I want to instill hope because we can fix this. We have the way to do it. It's a matter of scaling it.
So I want to get into Mighty Doodle itself. Like, tell me a little bit about what is different with this, because, literacy, presumably it's not a new, or illiteracy is not a new thing, and how has something not happened before? And talk to me a little bit about Mighty Doodle and how that is paving this new path.
So I don't think it's happened before because, frankly, it's not, easy peasy to get certified as a literacy specialist. So we onboard these wonderful teachers, right? And tell them this is your class, love them, teach them, introduce them to a love of learning. And 1 in 4 leave within the first 3 years because they don't have access to the curriculum that they need. And they don't have the time and the bandwidth to provide individualized instruction because they're feeding and they're caring for, they're the nurses, they're the psychologists. We do everything. We built this for students and teachers, right? There's a parent portal for them to watch children in real time progress through lessons that are sequential and repetitive and based on how we know that children can take in and connect the sounds and symbols. And in doing that, we build what is like the basement, if you will. Some children aren't diagnosed with learning differences or, they haven't learned to read for whatever reason, maybe 6th grade. And people say, well, how did it get this far? They're really smart kids. That's how it happened. They kind of fell through the cracks, if you will. And so what happened is the foundation, right? That K through 3 learning was not solid. And as you built the first floor and then you built the second floor, you get to the attic and everything starts to crumble because they don't know that CK comes at the end of a word after a short vowel, that the letter Y has 3 sounds. Yes, that is my candy. And so when you teach them the way they learn, it's miraculous, the light bulbs go on and you have a learner. And what I say to the naysayers who say, I came from poverty, look at me, I say, listen, we're a nonpartisan foundation committed to closing the literacy gap. We put children first. What I'm saying is you can't tell someone to pull themselves up by the bootstraps when you haven't given them bootstraps. So here you go. Here's Mighty Doodle. April, I give you one for your baby. And provide proper literacy instruction to every child across Minnesota and beyond.
I love it. I love it so much. Tell me a little bit about, as kids go through this, what changes are you seeing? Help me put sort of a face and an outcome to the work that you've been doing, because undoubtedly, I can hear the passion in your voice. I'm over here with perpetual goosebumps. It's just awesome. No, it's amazing to see. Tell me a little bit about what you're finding and the results that you're seeing from the people that have been using this.
So our data came back and we saw in a very short amount of time, less than 4 months actually, we saw between 20 and 40% increase in our students' ability to encode and decode, which is just fancy speak for reading and writing, right? To break the code, you decode it, and then to write it, you encode it. You write it, you spell it. So we saw great progress, which I knew we would because I've seen so many children have access to this. And, what else do you notice? You notice posture. Their posture, they sit up, they're engaged, they feel good about themselves because they're successful, and every day they're making progress. So that is how we not introduce just literacy, but how about a love of learning, and hopefully lots of books, more books, different trajectories, better trajectories, right? Your baby will be born and dream of all the things he or she will become, like my children did. And I want all children to be able to learn to read and write and become their best self. We have a student, I refer to her as President. Her shoe was untied, and I said, Madam President, may I tie your shoe, please? She might be president. She just had to learn to read first.
That's awesome. Okay, so I kind of have 2 sides of the coin to this next question. What is a way that, if you're talking to a bunch of parents, let's say there's a parent who's in their car right now and your voice is in their ear, what are some ways that parents can help set either their own kids or other kids, just kids in general? How do you set them up to learn to read or to love to read? What are some initial things that you can be doing, practically speaking? I mean, you've got this amazing background. I know people are going to be curious about what they themselves can do. And then I have another side to that coin in a minute.
So a lot of what you can do is lead by example. My children saw us reading. We got quiet, right? The TV wasn't on. We sat down with books ourselves. And also there's that really early initial connection to books. And that was in the comfort of my lap. With the second child, it was less of a lap because the baby was moving out and I had to fit number 2 on the lap with books. But also that belly served as a shelf for the third child, right? To hold books. So both my children could be on either side of me when I was pregnant with my third. So really immersing them in literacy. Just calling out letters you see when a car drives by. A cereal box, right? Turn around a General Mills cereal box and look at the letters and read what you can. They really are letters everywhere, billboards. I recommend book tapes and music, of course, right? We use mobility exercises so they can dance and get a break in our program. Each day a child gets to move their bodies. Do that in your car, right? There's a lot of time commuting. Moms and dads busy working, parents, one parent-led families, grandparents, whoever is with your child can make learning fun and expose them early on. They're never too young to see a letter. We don't want a drill sergeant, right? We're not drilling for the ACT prep and standardized testing. We're just planting the seed that this is good and it feels good to learn.
That's awesome. Flip side of that coin that I want to ask, how do people support you guys? This is such a foundational need and such a fundamental need for all kids. But then you think about the size and scope of the problem that we talked about earlier. And I mean, you are really poised to do some amazing work and to really help so many kids. Like how do people support you?
Well, that's funny. You're making me laugh because I'm imagining my friends in the car who listen to your podcast. And to them, first, I apologize because I often wonder if they'll stop inviting me over, right? Because every time I'm there, I'm talking about this and begging them, can you contribute, right? Every dollar counts. We have big donors. I am beyond grateful to the large donors, people who may have themselves suffered with learning differences. I'm also grateful to the child who was my student and made a backpack out of duct tape and sold it for $20. I'm grateful to the twin boys who emptied their piggy banks and said, Mrs. Mallin, get this to everyone. We're so grateful to you on their last day of tutoring, right? That's what brings tears to my eyes and even raises my hope that much further. We have the device. People are good. They want to help. Every person can help at whatever level. And that inspires me. That's what pushes me through, and a whole lot of coffee.
Totally get you on the coffee side. Oh my gosh. So tell me looking to the future, what does your future vision for this organization look like? And that's so broad and probably difficult to answer, but when you sit and really let your mind wander and let yourself go there, where do you see this organization going?
I dream of a day where I don't have to beg people to look at the website, people on my team. Did anyone donate at literacymatters.org today? I dream of a day that it's as common as a pencil, that I live to see the day where every child has this. My husband, God bless him, he says what's on his mind. It's probably why he's successful, but he said to me, you do realize you won't be here when the greatest outcome you've imagined happens. And I said, I'm not working that, crazy. I mean, I get it's a little long in the 18-hour days. It's not killed me yet. He said, no. He said, you may not live to see the day where they are no longer building prison beds based on third grade reading scores, right? I said, yeah, that's public information. They build beds based on, they know those kids in third grade don't have a chance. So that's what I dream of I dream of my child, his children not having to suffer because they had access, right? And every child who wasn't born into my house, they were just born into a different zip code. And so their trajectories were set. I'm sorry, I was reading data points last night, so much too late. I'm sorry. That's what I dream of.
And I am like way too pregnant for this.
I'm sorry. And I'm crying and I'm sorry. And I that's my dream. I just want so much to take what's in my head and in my heart and help them, because they are the sweetest, most beautiful children, and they deserve better, and we know better, so we should do better, and we will. And I know that. I see people stepping up. I'm grateful. My team, you should come meet my team. Bring your new baby. We love babies here. They work on fumes, and I'm beyond grateful to them every day. They were the ones dancing with me before the podcast. If not for them, I don't know where I'd be by myself running it maybe 20 hours a day. But we are coming, and that's what I tell the kids, that we're coming. They just need to hold on a little bit longer.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, I can feel every ounce of passion that you have for this, and it's just amazing. It is so stinking amazing. You mentioned your URL before, but I want to make sure that we call it out again. Where can people find you? Where can they donate?
That's a great question. I should know the answer to. Okay, so our website, by the way, that I built the first round while my family went hunting with a 6-pack of Diet Coke, is literacymatters.org. literacymatters.org. And I believe you can donate there or reach out to me. I'd love to talk to anyone about what they're in need of and how I can help, or how I can get them the right things until I can get them Mighty Doodle. And that should be on the website as well.
Oh my goodness. I'm just so thrilled about the work that you're doing and the passion that you're bringing to it. Undoubtedly, the impact you're making on so many kids' lives, not just obviously in elementary school, but the trajectory of their life from that point forward. I can't thank you enough. This is just this has every emotion is just coursing through me right now, from just total heartbreak up to complete elation that somebody is working on a problem of this size who has your capability and your passion behind it. That is just amazing. It's amazing.
Right back at you. Thank you. I'm sorry I made you cry. Never my intention. You're like Oprah. Doesn't Oprah make people cry?
Oh God. I don't know. You're the first person who said that. So I'm going to take that total complimentary, because that woman can interview some people. She's really great. Amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I'm so thrilled that we were connected and that we had the chance to chat today. Seriously, please keep us in mind if you hit milestones or anything else and you want to come back on and share wins or share additional updates about your story. There's open invitation. You are always welcome.
Thank you. I'll send you some baby books for the bathtub.
I love it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
I really hope after listening to that interview, you know what I mean when I say that Deb is incredibly passionate about the work that she's doing. And I also hope that by listening to that interview, what happened to me also happened to you, and you realized the size and scope of the problem that she is trying to solve. It is just the most inspiring thing to watch someone or meet someone who is so passionate about something like this go after a solution and actually create one. That is just incredible. Now, before I go into a couple of things that I want to hit on before the end of this episode, I want to mention I totally blew it and forgot to ask Deb for her favorite motivational song. So I actually reached out to her after this, and I wanted to make sure that we got that into her episode. So the song that she's adding to our playlist is by Sia, and the song is Never Give Up. So watch for the playlist and watch for that song on it. Thank you, Deb, for that contribution. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to hit from this. Number one, I want to stress the donation. Again, it is such a huge deal that your dollar can be matched 2-to-1 up to $150,000 from the Bazinet Charitable Foundation in Minneapolis. This is through October 31st, so you have a little bit of time, but I would just encourage you, if it's something that moves you, if you were moved by this interview, please go donate now, donate early, and just get it out of the way, because it would just be such a huge deal to them to know that they have this funding coming in so that they can create this amazing app called Mighty Doodle. You heard in the interview, Deb is actually the voice of one of the characters. And I mean, her voice was worn out. Like, that is dedication that she is, recording for this app all day long. And then she's hopping on the phone with me to record in order to get her message out there. That is some serious passion and some serious dedication. So if you are at all moved by that, please consider donating. You can go to www.literacymatters.org and do it right there. Now, there is one main thing that I want to highlight from this interview. Deb said it beautifully. She said, if you know better, do better. There's so many times that we stay quiet or we don't act, even though we know that there's a problem, even though we don't agree with something that we see. We see inequity, we see issues, we see problems, we see things that are just not okay. And we don't use our gifts and our skills and our passions to help rectify them. Minimally, we don't even use our voices to stand up for people who need it. Please, if there is anything that you take away from this episode this week, it is this one thing that I want to stress. If you know better, do better. If you see something that you know is not right, do better. Do something to fix it. Minimally, speak up. You have gifts, you have a voice, you have skills. You can absolutely make a huge difference in this world, and Deb is living proof of that. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. Please consider donating at www.literacymatters.org. Out today, I want to say thank you to my producer, Cameron Hill, and to my incredible sponsor, Modern Well. If you want to learn more about how you can reach your goals in a one-of-a-kind work-life community, visit www.modernwell.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit from this inspiring message. And if you have a moment, click the link in the episode description to leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me. Finally, I want to remind you that it is absolutely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even in spite of all of the chaos and demands we all experience. Sign up at aprilseifert.com to gain access to tools that will help you do just that. I have carefully created and curated a set of tools that combine the powerful fields of psychology and design thinking to help you intentionally create a fulfilling, happy life you love. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and until next week, stay inspired.